Nothing beats a good story, and this spring, Boston College has had 4 shocking surprises.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. I know this team as well as anyone, and I'm here to talk BC football. On today's show, we're going to look at an interesting change that could be coming for the college football schedule. Will there be a summer game? I'll tell you what that means. We're going to look at the end of camp. This is our final show with camp still alive, and I'm going to give you 4 surprises, 2 on offense and 2 on defense. So let's kick that off. Let's talk about surprises, because spring camp is always a good thing to get a good eyeball on where things are standing. And on next week's show, we're going to get into all of the guys that stood out, all the things that we saw. But what about the surprises? The names that we didn't expect going into camp that would really, catch our eyes. And there was 4. These are 4 names that I was like, I did not expect. And they played very well and made me reevaluate maybe what their role with the team is going to be for this upcoming season. We're going to start first on the offensive side of the ball. And I want to start first with a preferred walk-on. Now, with this new 105 roster spot rule that's coming down that we have not had any final guidance on yet, that could spell doom for a lot of preferred walk-ons across the country. And as Bill O'Brien has said over and over again, that's terrible, because without that program, you'd miss the stories of the Dennis Grossells or the Luke McLaughlins or all these other guys that have played and have been valuable. And as he says, they play the scout team. Well, this spring, there was another name of a preferred walk-on that caught my eye, and that was Brady Clough. Clough, I'm going to hopefully get his name right, a tight end. Now, Brady Clough got a chance to play because, the wide receiver position this spring is pretty not, doesn't have a ton of depth. Matt Reagan, medically retired. You have Ty Lockwood and Jeremiah Franklin. Those are your presumed starters for this season when you go two tight ends. You have Ryan Boltwood. You had Danny Edgehill, who didn't practice much. And then you have Clough. And I have to say, I want to say right now that I thought Clough played very, very well. Now, this is a kid who is a preferred walk-on. I think he's a sophomore, if I remember correctly. He's a redshirt freshman. He's from Scarborough, Maine. How many Scarborough, Maine based football players do you have? He's 6'3", 237. And he played some special teams last year. But what I wanted to say was he got an opportunity. That's what this team is all about, right? You get these opportunities, and if you take advantage of it, you're going to pay dividends down the road. Look at Jordan McDonald, running back last year. He basically played with the scout team for a while. He knocked it out of the park, and by the end of the season, he was one of their most consistent offensive weapons. Clough has kind of the same thing. This is a guy that, you going into the season, I wouldn't have talked about him at all because I didn't know him. Danny Edgehill last year during camp caught my attention. He's another tight end. But Clough, I did not see much of. And so Clough, I thought this spring really took a chance to kind of get himself noticed, to get himself maybe into the swing of things when it comes to the 2 deep. Will he be a starter? No. There's no way he's going to be a starter. But could you see him next year? Well, he's already got a leg up on most of the depth because, as I just said, tight ends are not a deep unit right now. They have 3 coming in over the summer. And those guys, but they're coming in over the summer, they're all freshmen. They haven't been here that long. So I think he's got a leg up on that. Now, my honorary mention here for a tight end would have been Kalen Chudzinski, who also looked really good. I think Clough looks more, I think of him more as like an inline blocker type of tight end, the guy that can really do some really good things blocking. Chudzinski looked good with his hands. Both of them did, but I mean, Clough definitely could catch it too. But I really thought Chudzinski looked good there. Now, I don't also want to, while I'm talking about this, I did not mention in terms of depth Zeke Moore as well. Zeke Moore is that transfer from FAU. He also had a pretty solid camp. But that was my first one. The next name is more of a standout and surprise because I was just shocked at how far he's already come, and that's Shaker Reisig. Shaker Reisig is the quarterback from Union, Oklahoma. He's a true freshman, got on campus in December around the time of the Pinstripe Bowl. If you watch him, and I know you guys can't watch him yet, he does not look like a freshman at all. Like, I am just shocked. Bill O'Brien has used this term. He should still be going to his senior prom whenever talking about him. And it's kind of jarring to think of that because I watch him out there and I've watched lots of kids at camps before, and he looks more composed than any freshman or redshirt freshman that I've seen. He is. I would just think he's established himself as probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks on the team. Like, he's not going to start, but you got something special moving forward with Shaker Reisig. I remember, Mitch Wolf watching him and saying, I don't know what you have there. But what he's already starting to do, which is so valuable in a quarterback, is he knows how to manage a game. He knows how to check down when he needs to. He's starting to learn how to read defenses, and he's composed. So decision making and composure, those will be the biggest factor to make a quarterback successful. And Jonathan DiBiase and that staff on the offense, they were able to identify this and they went out and got him. There's a reason why Shaker Reisig was BC's #1 target last year. They kept it quiet for months. They did not want anyone to know this because they didn't want to lose it because they knew how important he was. I am just completely blown away at how good Reisig looks already. You know, I've watched, I think of someone like Jacoby Robinson, right? He's taken a while to get himself going. And, he's starting to get the praise of the staff. But it took him 2.5, 3 years now to get to that point. He was younger too. He's a younger guy, and it took him that long. Reisig is already there, and he's a freshman. So they've got something. They did an excellent job in evaluating him. And the best part of this is that Reisig doesn't need to play this year. You can continue to develop him. You can continue to have him run with, not be on the 2 deep, but work with some of the guys on lower on the roster, get those snaps, and get yourself ready for next year because Grayson James is going to graduate after this year, and you have Dylan Larnigan for a couple more years. Next year, your quarterback battle is going to be Larnigan and Reisig, and I would have said going into this camp that would have, James was going to be the easy #1 there, and we're not there yet. I'm not going to get into who's the ones and who's the twos, but battles are happening, and that's what they're doing. And next year is going to be another battle. Larnigan's going to have to battle Reisig, and Reisig is doing everything in his power, it looks like, to continue to grow and get better. He's getting better every single practice. It's striking to see how much he has improved. And we still haven't even hit summer yet. Like, he's gonna. When I look at what next year looks like this summer looks like, excuse me. One of the things I'm most one of the things I'm going to be looking forward to watching is where Shaker Reisig is. Like, I feel like he could take another enormous step this summer. That's how good he's looked so far. Now, in our second segment, I want to go to the defensive side of the ball, where I have a defensive back, and I also have a linebacker. Sorry, I had the wrong name in my brain. And I have a linebacker. I'll explain who those two are in just a moment. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates, their progress, so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your deduction, every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% guaranteed. Also, you can get back the most money guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is tax taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only available in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and I want to shout out Locked On Celtics. The Celtics are getting ready for possibly banner number 19, and John Corrales has got you covered. Go check out Locked On Celtics on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, we are a daily Boston College podcast, the only one out there. We do this. I think I'm getting close to 1,000 episodes. If you want BC coverage, you're in the right spot. We do this every single day, 5 days a week. And I'm glad you're here to listen. Now, the defensive side of the ball, this is the big question going into camp. Who was going to step up for Donovan Azaraku? And I almost put Favor Bate, excuse me, it's no S at the end, as one of my biggest surprises because he's really good right now. I'm not sure where he's going to fall in terms of playing next year, but he's certainly put his name into the pot of guys that you could be looking at that other edge position. No, the first surprise for me was a surprise for a bunch of different reasons. Is a linebacker, and it's Vaughn Pemberton. Now, there's a lot of surprises here. First of all, I'm surprised that I was surprised when I got to that first camp and realized that BC's linebacker depth going into camp was completely gutted. Remember, Bam Crouch, Owen McGowan, and Kamori Dixon were all injured. We did not see Jalen Blackwell, who also got injured. So basically your entire two deep minus Bryce Steele was hurt. And that left a lot of questions. So you had BC playing guys like Billy Van Pelt and Timmy Hayes. Those are preferred walk-ons. You had Paloe Fahoa. You also had Griffin Collins. But the biggest question, like those guys, you have your grizzled preferred walk-ons, guys that have been around forever. They've been here. They know what they're doing. And, Fahoa is in his third season. Collins, he's the prototypical linebacker you brought in as a freshman. The biggest surprise was because they just needed depth, was they moved Vaughn Pemberton from running back to linebacker. And this shocked me because Vaughn Pemberton came in as a transfer running back from Ball State. His brother was on the basketball team, Quinn Pemberton. I believe there's family connections to BC. This is a kid that's BC through and through. But, when I first saw that he committed here, I was like, as a running back, I was like, he's like 6'3", 230, 240 or something like that. I'm like, wow, that's a big boy. Maybe Bill's going for that like short down back or goal line back to try to get touchdowns. He didn't even get that far. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense, at least for this point. We're in spring and you have a running back room that's stacked. You got Turbo, you got Turbo Richard, you got Jordan McDonald, and Alex Brum is back, and Dontrell Jones. They've got a lot of guys that are ready to go at the running back position, but you didn't have anyone linebacker. You are basically going with a group that was just like bare bones is being nice. So you put Vaughn Pemberton back there, and I gotta say, he did not disappoint. Like, this is not a guy that I'm really hoping that next year, and it sounds like from what Bill O'Brien said, he said it on his podcast that all three guys should be back, Kamori, Owen McGowan, and Bam. But I hope I don't have to see Vaughn Pemberton. But it's still pretty cool to see him go out there. And he really did look like a linebacker. Like, he played like a linebacker. He didn't look out of place. He didn't look like he was raw and didn't know what he was doing. But I also want to say that's against, deeper offenses. You're going against, the freshmen and walk-ons when you're doing this. When you're doing that then versus doing that against Clemson or SMU or Notre Dame are very, very different stories. So it's a cool story now. It's a big surprise now, but I hope the surprise doesn't happen again in the summer. Let's just leave it at that. I hope we can put Vaughn Pemberton back at running back, have him back as being a potential weapon for BC and not at linebacker. But it was a surprise. I was shocked to see him switch positions like that because I didn't see it coming. The second surprise on the defensive side of the ball is red shirt defensive back Charlie Camella. Now, Charlie Camella is from Massachusetts. He is I think if I remember correctly, he's from Zavarian Brothers, Massachusetts. His dad played at Stanford. He was a fullback. I believe he played with the Giants too. And I believe his uncle played at BC. So he comes in, he was a track star. I think he was recruited as an athlete. And we saw just smidgens of him last year. They did that kind of like redshirt thing where they played him in a few blowouts, and that was about it. At one point this spring, Charlie had 5 interceptions. I saw a few of them live, and he looks every bit the part of being a ACC level defensive back. You go into camp and you're expecting to see the veterans like Max Tucker and Ashton McShane. I guess you can call him a veteran, and some of the guys like KP Price and Carter Davis. You're waiting for them to all make plays, and you're even looking at the freshmen like Ashton Cunningham and TJ Green. You're watching to see them, but then the guys that you don't think about are the guys that go out there and they make those big plays. Like Charlie Camella, you're not expecting him to make those big plays, and he's doing it over and over and over again. And that's a cool story. So he's not just a, son of a former football player. This kid is ready, to be on the depth chart, to be a contributor in the defensive backfield. That's cool. Because he came in with speed. That was one thing that we heard a lot about Charlie when he was getting recruited. Was I believe he had a leg injury his senior year. I think he got hurt. But there was reports about how fast he was, and that he really impressed at camps for Jeff Hafley when Hafley was here. Now he gets out there and he's playing a lot. So he would be my second big surprise on defense. So I have a guy that was not supposed to be playing and a guy that was more of an afterthought to me. And that's not a knock on Charlie at all. Just as I was saying, I was giving you a dive into my mind. There's been other surprises as well. As I mentioned, Favor Bate is definitely one. Another surprise would be the offense. I mean, the TJ Green. TJ Green has been all over the place in terms of the way he plays in the secondary. I really think he's been something. And then the third one would have been Syer Torrance, who I think Cam Martinez is probably going to be your starting nickel corner, but Syer is definitely your future there. That guy looks like he belongs, and he's had a really good camp as well. So I gave you 4, and then some smatterings of other things that have shocked me as well. And then finally, it wouldn't be a BC practice report without me telling you another surprise is Andy Quinn, the punter from Ireland. I'm going to keep bringing him up every single time because I am not used to having a guy that can actually punt the ball the way that Andy Quinn can punt the ball. I am dying to see what he looks like outside because and I wonder, did they put in when they made the Fish Field House, like, did they think about how high punts go? Because every single punt goes into the rafters. I don't know how they practice when every single punt is going up there. But every punt Andy Quinn makes just gets launched up there, and I can't tell how far these things would go. All I know is they look like rockets coming off of his feet. So I'm a big fan of Andy Quinn. He's one of my favorite players right now. And honestly, as a true freshman, he surprised the heck out of me too. So there's a bonus surprise for you, and one you're probably going, AJ, you've talked about this kid from Ireland a whole lot. Well, so what I've seen has shocked me. So that's all my surprises for the day. I'm tapped out. Those are I get 4. If you have some more, throw them in the comments. Who's someone that you're surprised from maybe things you've read from me or heard me talk about on this podcast? Put them in the comments below. All right. In our final segment, there's a new thought that came out about a way that this college football schedule could change, and I like it. I'll explain what that is in just a moment. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black. I want to shout out all my everydayers out there, all of you that have clicked like over and over again. As you can tell, I put it up on Twitter today. I didn't record last night because I started getting a head cold and my voice was just going in and out. I'm like, I don't want to make people listen to Froggy Black over here because my voice was just a complete disaster. Now I've had tea and water a lot today, and as you can tell, my voice sounds really good. So 24 hours, feeling good, and I'm glad I got this episode out to all my everydayers because you deserve your 5th episode of this week, and I'm glad to do it. Now, the scheduling of the college football season is crazy. It's always been crazy. It's getting crazier now because of NIL and the transfer portal and the way that college football recruiting is working. It's grinding out coaches like even Jeff Halfley, and there's other coaches that are just giving up on the sport because it's just too much. The schedule's a lot. But one thing that we saw change this year was the elimination of the Jay McGillis spring game. And I've said all along that I think it's a good move. Bill O'Brien claims he just wanted another practice. But let's read the tea leaves here, folks. He may not say it, but other coaches have, which is that the transfer portal is about to open in another week or so, and he does not need agents and other coaches peeling away and stealing his players as he prepares for the upcoming season. The last thing BC needs to do is have what I think was WVU, who's had like 5 defensive backs leave already. Like, that's not what the school needs. So getting rid of the spring game when it's right before the transfer portal is a good idea. But I saw David Teal, who's an excellent writer, and I forget where he's at now, but he wrote something that could be something that comes down the pike. We saw Deion Sanders and Fran Brown try to have a spring game in joint practice. It got shut down for a myriad of reasons. Teal proposes that maybe something that could be coming down soon are preseason games. And, you have your camp, the portal's dead, so you can't do anything. And it gives coaches more valuable tape on their players when they're in live situations playing against other teams. That, I think, is a great idea. I don't know if it's one game, if it's 2 games, but there's a lot of great things that could come out of that. As I first said, playing against the same guys over and over again, as someone last summer who watched it, I got bored of it. I don't know how they feel, but, Max Tucker being on Lewis Bond for 4 weeks straight is a lot. And then camp too. Like, freshening it up with a few other opponents can help your team grow. I love that idea. The other piece, and this is probably why NCAA might actually consider it and their media partners, is it gives you more money. Yeah, if BC has a home, like say they do 1 home and 1 away spring game, it can be televised on the ACC network or whatever partner they have. I mean, it's the summer, so there's not a ton of it. And you can do tickets, you can sell concessions, you can do all that good stuff. So the money is there too. That's a big factor, is the money will be there. You could say the same thing for the spring, but I get the feeling that some of the logistics would go away. And I think the coaches would be also on board for this because, as I said, they get to see their guys play. Now, if BC were to do this, if this was something that eventually comes down, and I honestly think there's a good chance it could, you have schools around you to play. And I have said before, I do not want it to be against FCS schools. Playing against a defense that can barely stop you does not help. And I'm not talking about when Jeff Halfley was here. You saw what Duquesne did last year. Thomas Castellanos looked like John Elway out there. It doesn't do any, like, honestly, at that point, playing against yourself is more up your alley. But maybe you have UMass and you have UConn. Those are 2 schools. And if you want a third, Buffalo. Throw Buffalo out there, I guess, or Temple, something like that. Not too far out. I mean, they're kind of, but it's not like a huge travel. You get those guys, and then you rotate between them for home and away. Boom. You get 2 preseason games or 1 preseason game. And if it's 1, it'll be as a Power 4 school, it's home every time. You do not give that away. So I love this idea. Another chance to get to Alumni Stadium for fans, I think, is a great idea. Another more TV and honestly, like, stuff to talk about. Like, think about just basic. When I watch a scrimmage, now they're being really protective of even what I can say. But if it's on TV, if it's a preseason game, we all watch the same thing. I could talk about it, and it could be a cool thing. I would love to see this. And I saw David Hale has always said that this should be a bowl game. They should move the bowl games to preseason. I would love to hear more of that because I think that's a fun idea too. Because the bowl games are a complete disaster right now. Anyways, might as well do it when you have all your bullets in your chamber, right? So just another cool thing. Now this weekend, Saturday, tomorrow is the last practice of the spring. We get Bill O'Brien one more time. Really interested to see if he has anything new and exciting to say. There's a gigantic group of recruits there. I'll have the visitors list up on Eagle Insider. 50% off right now. If you have not signed up, that's like a cup of coffee a month, and you get insider information, analysis from Mitch. You get it all. Just sign up. It's worth it, and you support my work. And if you also want to support it, hit that subscribe button here on Locked On BC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And I will see you all again on Monday for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.